lot of actions, a lot of chaos, I'd say. We started out at the beginning of the year. There was an announcement of a federal funding freeze, and everyone was, what does that mean? And I heard from people who had federal grants who were saying, I had a fire chief call. He had just hired 2 firefighters on federal grants. It's like, do I have to let them go? I had several Wisconsin Head Start programs that had their funding frozen, and they had to close temporarily. And hundreds of families had no place for their children to go for care. We had some massive layoffs. I call it the Valentine's Day Massacre, where they let off most of the probationary employees in federal government. And I don't know if they thought the word probation meant they had somehow done something wrong in their jobs, but really what probation means in the federal service is your first 1 or 2 years of work, as you're getting to know your job, you're on a probationary status. And they just took out all of those. I will even mention that probationary status occurs anew if you're promoted. And so you have a new job title and a new job description. You could have worked for federal service for a dozen years. You get a promotion and you're on probation again. And so a lot of those employees were laid off also. Most recently, there's been headlines about tariffs and their impact on the cost of things at the grocery store as well as the stock market. Lots of news about that. So there's been a lot of chaos. And in the mix of that, there's been discussion about something called budget reconciliation, about using that tool to do some tax measures and to pay for those tax measures, which, by the way, disproportionately benefit the wealthy and big corporations. To pay for those, they're looking at where they can cut. So you have DOGE, standing for the Department of Government Efficiency, headed up by Elon Musk, really leading these mass layoffs, the proposed elimination of departments like the education department. And just yesterday they indicated they were going to propose cutting Head Start altogether everywhere. No. Yeah, they're going to propose it. We're going to fight. Don't worry, we're going to fight. But one of the big targets, because of the price tag associated with Medicaid, is Medicaid. And they have set in motion a process to look at cutting as much as $880 billion out. It's almost $1 trillion out of Medicaid. And that would be devastating as applied across the country. And so I wanted to have you here to tell your stories about how you've interacted with Medicaid. And for people who are watching on TV, watching on the news, or learning about this, most states have different names for Medicaid. So here, most people have heard of Badger Care. We're the Badger State, of course. We have Badger Care and Badger Care Plus. And so a lot of children who are on Medicaid know it as Badger Care. We have Medicaid waiver programs like Family Care and IRIS. So all of those, you hear these different words, but we're all still talking about Medicaid. And I believe that we can fight back against these proposed cuts successfully, or at least make them much less severe than is being discussed. And one of my sources of hope is the last time we were faced with these challenges, they were going to take away the Affordable Care Act, which of course has lots of implications on Medicaid too. And just because people, like everyone at this table, told their stories, some wrote letters, made phone calls, rallied sometimes, all of those things combined helped us successfully fight back. And so I'm hoping that we'll be able to do that again, and I'm just really grateful for your being here to share stories, share your experience, and educate others in the process. So I I'd love to just go around the table and have us share stories. I forgot to share my own, and that is that my own mother was on Medicaid, and especially in her last years when she needed skilled nursing care. There's no way she would have had a safe roof over her head if it weren't for Medicaid stepping in. She had Social Security, she had a tiny pension, and because of that she qualified for Medicaid to help with that care. And it covers a lot of, a third of all children, 8 million seniors, 15 million Americans with disabilities. It's a powerful and important program. So I think we start with Megan. Is that all right? Okay.
Hi, my name is Megan, Megan Real. I'm a state certified peer support specialist since 2020. I currently work as a CPS at the Gathering Place in Green Bay. I've been
What's a
working-
CPS?
A certified peer support specialist.
Yes, thank you. I'm gonna get us out of acronyms. Although I think IRIS is an acronym and I don't even know what it stands for, so sorry about that.
I can't keep up with it.
But yes.
But I've been working in nonprofit management over the last 5 years, involving community-based programs for addiction, mental health, homelessness, poverty, etc. But I am also a member of the recovery community. I'm diagnosed personally with substance use and mental health disorders. Before I became a peer support specialist, I received the very same peer support services in the beginning of my treatment process, which is why I believe it's an essential service to offer our community. My passion is advocacy and to break down barriers so our community can access addiction and mental health care without the obstacles that I personally experienced in my own journey towards recovery. So, I am a recovering addict with over 4 years in recovery. My life went from a seemingly normal high schooler to being thrown into the full-blown depths of addiction. I didn't know what I was dealing with in the beginning. You know, it started with mental health problems, and that in itself has always been a battle, finding treatment, and even when I would find it, it wasn't always the correct treatment, because mental health conditions require time to observe and diagnose and properly treat. The symptoms of it are so hard to deal with while trying to remain a functioning person, learning how to be, at the time I was learning how to be an adult. The answer to this problem becoming too much to bear without proper treatment is crisis intervention, which is not only needed as a basic human right, but also its current state needs to be expanded upon, because a temporary fix will never be the answer. But a symptom of dealing with mental health is addiction. Using wasn't my problem, it was my solution. It was what numbed the pain and made it easier to do normal adult things like other people around me, not knowing that some of them were also wandering around aimlessly trying to figure it all out. And society pressure made me feel like I had to hide my using and drinking problems, like it was shameful. And my addiction quickly turned from what was normal for other people around me in my circle to use things like prescriptions and party drugs to hard drugs and opiates. When I was ready to seek treatment, I can say for certain the only things that allow me to even be alive today is medication-assisted treatment and the peer support that I received. MAT, medication-assisted treatment, like Suboxone and methadone, allowed me to transition to everyday life and ease the symptoms of withdrawal and cravings. This allowed me to focus on building the foundation to the life I live today. I received peer support and was then able to become a CPS, certified peer support specialist. So I received it and then I was able to become one myself. I have worked with hundreds of people over the last 5 years during the entirety of their recovery journeys, from emergency rooms to the maintenance of their recovery journey. It is already extremely difficult with what we do have available, and it truly takes individuals coming together to create programs in the nonprofit sector to fill the gaps that exist in the bridge to recovery. Stigma, though, is one of the barriers that prevents people from seeking treatment. And then there's the waiting lists. The pathways to treatment are hard to find, and there are so many gaps in the treatment process. And granted, someone's ready to seek treatment. I know for myself personally the gaps in that recovery process, from going to inpatient to going into a residential facility into going to long-term sober living, a long-term sober living program, because without a long-term plan, everything, my efforts seemed fruitless. It seemed like, what's the point of even trying if I don't know what's going to happen next week, next month? It's hard to build a foundation without a little help in the beginning. There, is stigma within the medical field as well, even within the industry of addiction, medicine, and mental health services. I personally witnessed people being treated as if they will not succeed, like they're criminals or liars, and that is all they are. And so, we've made a lot of progress. We have with mental health and addiction. It's a medical condition, and ever since I found the courage within myself, ever since I found, the courage within myself through those things that I had mentioned before, like peer support and MAT, and the help that was offered to me, like programs to build the foundation to the life that I live today. Once I found that courage, I was able to start fighting against the stigma and start fighting against, and speaking up about that this is a basic human right, that it needs to be treated. It's a medical condition that requires medical treatment.
Yes.
And that it's already so hard to access. It's already so hard to get people to understand that, even though everyone deals with it in one way or another. Even if you yourself are not an addict, I'm willing to believe, or willing to bet everyone in this room knows somebody that is. And it is something that is so hard to talk about, though. And so, can you imagine trying to find, the treatment, trying to find a crisis management service? All of those things, they're essential. And as a CPS now, I've worked with hundreds of people, as I mentioned, and most of them are on Medicaid as well. Medicaid allowed me to do the things like receive those medical, the medication-assisted treatment. But now, I'm watching all of these people trying to build a foundation. I'm trying to guide them to all these programs that are at risk of losing funding.
Right.
And I know that many professionals in similar fields are dealing with that as well. Because I do not know what we will do if we lose access to a lot of these programs, a lot of this funding. I don't know what the answer will be to give them.
Thank you so much for sharing, Megan. Pete.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Peter Silsky. I'm going on 6 years of active recovery from substance misuse, with my drug of choice being heroin and fentanyl. I'm here to speak to the importance of Medicaid's ability to fund recovery services and peer support. 5 years ago, I had nothing left of value in my life. After over 20 years of active addiction, I found myself homeless, unemployed. I was disconnected with my family, had few friends. I saw no way out. I got to a point where I no longer wanted to live a life a slave to the drug. I intentionally overdosed, and paramedics were called and Narcaned me 6 times. I was also then brought in an ambulance over to St. Vinny's, our local hospital, where they administered Narcan, and then connected me with aftercare to Willow Creek, which is a mental health facility, to stabilize and to detox. From there, I then was connected with the Jackie Nitschke Center and completed inpatient and then IOP at Libertas. All of that, because I was unemployed and I had no funding, was funded, I believe, by the Medicaid program.
Yep.
All that made it possible. I would have had access to none of it at that time. Today, I am recovery coach certified and a homeless outreach case coordinator for the city of Green Bay. As I said, I've got 6 years of active recovery. I have helped hundreds of individuals in resource navigation to receiving treatment for their addiction as well as co-occurring mental health. I'm very concerned over the recent cuts to the Uplift program, 988, the ED2 recovery grant, and SOAR funding. We are still in the midst of an opioid epidemic,
Yes.
with approximately, the local PD getting approximately 5 overdose-related calls a day, many of them needing Narcan. Without Narcan saturation and resource navigation, as well as multiple pathways of treatment available, including MAT, I believe we will see overdose numbers reaching well above, in Brown County, well above the 50 that we experienced in 2022. Overdose deaths.
Right.
Last year, I believe the number didn't get over 20, and that's the approximation. The year before that, I know we had a record number of deaths, and most of that progress that we had made was due to Narcan saturation and peer support services being available. And we are making progress in the treatment of this and understanding it. But my concern is that we're making the progress, and if we fall back off of that, where's
Yeah.
that going to leave us? In my current position working with the homeless, I work with the most vulnerable of the chronically homeless every day in our city. I can say there already exist gaps in our healthcare system. I have a deep concern that funding cuts would turn those gaps into gaping holes that our
Yes.
most vulnerable of unsheltered will find themselves in a deep, dark pit with no way out, seemingly. So, yes, we need the Medicaid, we need the services, it's vital.
Yes.
I appreciate you for being an advocate in our community.
Thank you so much. All right, you're next.
So sorry, just a quick reminder that we gotta keep our comments a little tight, around like 3 minutes, y'all did great. Thank you so much.
So I am here to express my deep concern regarding potential cuts to Medicaid and the significant negative impacts these cuts would have on individuals like my daughter Hannah, who's 23, with Down syndrome. She lives and works in Green Bay. Medicaid is essential for providing her with the healthcare services and resources she needs to live a healthy and fulfilling life. Hannah's journey with Medicaid began at birth when she was born 3 months premature with a significant heart defect and Down syndrome. Utilizing Katie Beckett, or Tefra, Hannah was able to bypass months in the hospital and receive critical medical, therapeutic, and birth-to-3 services at home. Once she no longer qualified for Katie Beckett, Hannah was able to use Medicaid to continue therapies at school and obtain much-needed communication devices to assist her when communication with speech was difficult, and use the Children's Long-Term Support Waiver through Medicaid to have a fence built in our yard so that she could play safely and independently. Currently, Hannah uses the Adult Long-Term Care Waiver through IRIS to participate in needed day services, transportation, job coaching, and respite care. These services help Hannah live in the community rather than in an institutional care where she would not be able to thrive or engage with her peers of all abilities. They enable her to receive day-to-day support she needs, pursue educational activities, and contribute to society. Any reductions in these services would isolate her and limit her opportunities to grow and participate fully in her community. She also uses straight Medicaid to access health services for continued cardiology, arthritis, endocrine, and primary needs. Many individuals with disabilities rely on Medicaid for critical health care services, specialized therapies, day services, mobility devices, and access to necessary medications. These services are not just a matter of convenience, but a necessity for well-being and the ability to function as independently as possible. Without Medicaid, Hannah and others like her would face tremendous challenges in maintaining their health and overall quality of life. I thank you for the opportunity to come here, and I implore you and others in the Senate to consider the profound impact these Medicaid cuts would
Yes.
have on people with disabilities and their families.
These cuts undermine the values of inclusivity, equity, and compassion that are foundational to our society. I truly feel like this should not be a partisan issue.
That's right. That's
Humanity is nonpartisan, and this should not even be a part of. There should not be for people.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Samantha. Do you go by Sam or Samantha?
Either one is fine.
Okay. And then we have Katie.
Yes, I'm Katie Vaniet, and this is my daughter, Caitlin. Caitlin is 8, and started having health problems when she was about 5 months old. She had her first seizure. She's been diagnosed with Rett syndrome, deals with daily seizures, got Medicaid because her health problems started before we finalized our adoption. They were able to roll us onto that program. At that point in time, I had no idea how important Medicaid was going to be for us, because just didn't know what the future was going to be the way it is. But it's been a huge blessing for our family, because around when she was about 1.5 years old, I had to step away from my job and become a single income family. My husband works, but that was a huge and Caitlin spends lots of time in the hospital. I think a couple years ago she spent 72 nights in the hospital, not consecutive, but over a period of time, with just lots of health problems and not having to worry about the financial burden of being in the hospital. Her seizure medications are over $4,000 a month, and not having to worry about that part of her problems is a huge blessing for our family. I also wanted to talk about the CLTS, Children's Long-Term Support Waiver.
Yes.
That has been a huge blessing for our family. They help us with respite care equipment that insurance won't pay for. It's always nice to know when we need something, if insurance isn't going to cover it, that there is a backup plan and not have to worry about spending thousands of dollars, because everything for special needs kids costs a lot. They also provided resources to get her out in the community, inclusion, those kinds of things are very important. As a learning family, there's things we aren't aware of that they've been able to suggest that have been really helpful in Caitlin's well-being. Right now, currently, we are working with them at modifying our home so that we can. They put a stair lift in last fall, which was over $20,000, and as a single income family, it was nice. I thought we'd have to pay part of it. They covered all of it. They also recently helped us with a conversion for our van to get her a wheelchair in and out of the van. We're currently working on putting in a handicap bathroom, a ramp to get her in and out, all these things that normal people don't have to worry about. As she's getting bigger, we are currently working with them to and it's nice, that's just a huge blessing and resource for our family that most people don't have to worry about. They also have helped us with different therapies. She's done horse therapy, swimming therapy, and then, just lots of things that they've just been a huge resource. Her caseworker is, if I have any problems, I know I can message her, and she has lots of ideas for us, and that's just been a blessing that, I didn't even know we needed.
So wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Katie. Mari.
Hi, I'm Mari, and I live in Menasha. Just thank you, Senator Baldwin, and your entire team for facilitating this great day of learning with each other. This is my daughter, Billy. When she was 7 months old, she was diagnosed with a rare brain malformation called polymicrogyria. It's impossible to ignore the impact that Medicaid has had on us. Her first therapies were facilitated through Birth to 3, which receives funding from Medicaid, and today she receives Katie Beckett, or Forward Health Insurance, which is also always billed after our primary insurance. Billy also participates in the Children's Long-Term Support Program known as CLTS. Forward Health, CLTS, and Billy's school therapies are all funded by Medicaid. As a teacher, I understand the impact that early intervention has on a child's path in life.
Yeah.
Our family doctor had suggested us connecting to Birth to 3 when Billy was a few months old, and after just a month of evaluations and paperwork, we were able to begin OT. Occupational therapy really helped us be empowered to live life to the fullest. Receiving a life-defining diagnosis for your child is so difficult, but with our Birth to 3 therapist, we found joy again. We bounced on exercise balls, we felt textured books, we played with adapted toys, we played with a lot of shaving cream, and we practiced different forms of alternative communication. We talked about seating needs, seatings that would meet her muscular needs so that she could reach toys and sit up tall. We talked about how to help her hold crayons and spoons and books. We learned how to swing her in a blanket when she couldn't sit independently, how to help her go down a slide at the park, and how to support her in grocery carts and park swings. When we moved from Marathon County to Calumet County, our OT gave us a card thanking us for the opportunity to work with our child and wrote about what children need most: love, respect, to play, to have fun, to be seen, and to be listened to. Billy's birth to 3 experience ensured her developmental needs were met during her crucial earliest years, and this set her up for success as she transitioned to the public school. My child loves music, our swing set, her adaptive bike, pontoon rides, her friends, and audiobooks. She, like any other child, deserves a high quality of life. Katie Beckett and CLTS ensure that my 7-year-old child does not have to live in a nursing home, but that she can remain at home with her sister, our dog, and go to our neighborhood public school with our friends. Katie Beckett assists with needs like costly wheelchair repairs, a communication device where she says things like, "I love you," and "I don't like that," and "stop," and daily medical supplies that keep our daughter fed, seizure-free, and alive. CLTS assists with additional life-giving opportunities like horseback riding, music therapy. In addition, they also installed ADA-compliant ramps and widened the doorways in our home that allow for her wheelchair to travel throughout. Families like mine depend on the essential services funded by Medicaid so we can care for our loved ones at home, at schools, and at clinics and hospitals. We are so grateful for your team and for everyone in this room who continues to fight for people with extra needs. Thank you.
so much. Thank you. Stacy.
I'm Stacy.
Yes.
I am now a divorced single mom with 2 grown sons. My son Adam is 26 years old. He did Forward Health Insurance in between the time he graduated from college and got a full-time job, so it covered his insurance. My other son Tyler is the main reason I'm here. He's 29 years old. He was diagnosed as globally developmentally delayed, which means he is physically delayed and cognitively delayed. Right now, I believe he is functioning on a level of a 7 to a 17-year-old. Pick your moment. But
Yes.
he loves to hang out with the guys. Then he's 17. He gets out of the car in a parking lot. He runs across without looking both ways. He's 7. He can make his own breakfast on the stove, assisted or supervised, because he has turned on the stove to make his eggs and ran away. And I'm like, why? We need to do this.
Yeah.
Another thing that happened recently was that he does his own laundry. He overstuffed the wash machine. So all of a sudden he says, "Mom, there's water on the floor." It didn't spin right, so when he pulled the clothes out, it hadn't drained. So we are working on life skills. He's, like I said, 29 years old. I did work for the county for over 30 years for Brown County, and in the IT department, which provided our main health insurance. But I retired. I could retire after 30 years, and so then the children lost their health insurance. So Tyler has Medicaid, and we had the Medicaid for him. But I did that more to be able to supervise Tyler. Tyler, we applied for Medicaid when he was a little bit older, because our primary health insurance took care of his needs in the schools and the birth to 3 program. We were in that too many years ago. But when he got to middle school, he aged out of daycare, after school care, because after school care goes to 12. After school care took care of him, but then I had no one to cover that gap when I was working full time. So in order to get respite care, we needed to go to the CLTS program, which also gave him the backup health insurance, which we kept as something for now. You know, it was planning for the future, and now he has his Medicaid, which is his primary health insurance. He is no longer on the CLTS program because he is much older, but he receives day services, which from Aspiro in town here. He receives transportation that allows him to be independent. He gets picked up with a van, comes and picks him up and transports him from our home to Aspiro. So he is the big man there, that he gets to navigate that independently. Goes to Aspiro 3 days a week for their day services program, and they just work on general things, and they do outings, they go to the library and the parks. But then the other 2 days a week, he participates in their Building Fuller Lives program, which is one of their vocational programs. It is the beginning, it's a pre-vocational, they work with them on job skills. So they go to the thrift stores in town and volunteer, and they go to the botanical gardens and pull weeds, and they go to Bay Beach and stuff corn into bags and fold towels. But it gives them training for the next step. They talk about filling out applications. He came home the other day and said, oh, there's a phone number missing on my information sheet. And he had to go and look that up and write it. I don't know if they could read it, because that's part of his disability, is that he has some physical, fine motor. He cannot tie his shoes, so he has Velcro shoes. And that all of those services are things that he receives. And with me retiring from my job, I am now on the Affordable Care Act insurance. So with all of these things, if we lose Medicaid, he loses his insurance. If we lose the Affordable Care Act, I lose my insurance. Who would insure us? Him with a disability? I'm a cancer survivor. Would anyone privately insure me? And so we are worried about all of these things. The other thing that I'm worried about, I go into a Sparrow and see all of his friends. They have basketball during the wintertime. All of these people that volunteer, that work at a Sparrow and volunteer their time, what will happen to them?
Right.
And what is the devastation on our economy when Tyler doesn't have his health insurance and I have to take him to the ER if something goes wrong?
Right.
And then all of these other people that don't have jobs, and what is going to happen to,
Yeah.
the surrounding community on all of that.
Yes.
So I believe I covered everything.
Thank you, Stacy. I appreciate that. Next we have Miss Barb.
Hello, yes. This is my son, Andy Young. Here's Andy's story. On August 3rd, 1988, my 10-year-old son, Andy Young, set off on his bike for the municipal pool in Manitowoc. There he was involved in a car-bike accident and suffered a traumatic brain injury. His 4-month stay in the hospital was covered by Katie Beckett, Medicaid. He was still in a coma which lasted 7 months when I brought him home. He slowly began to respond to his environment and improved enough to attend school the following year in his new wheelchair. Medicaid. Andy lived at home with his older brother John and me with the help of Holy Family Home Care, Medicaid. At the age of 24, Andy moved to a group home in Green Bay, Medicaid and Family Care. He has been attending cerebral palsy ever since, Medicaid, Family Care. Cerebral palsy has been a godsend, and he looks forward to going each and every day. He enjoys karate and has earned his gold belt. He is a master at Trivial Pursuit and the first one chosen when forming teams. Andy enjoys tetherball and has developed a very accurate aim. He loves music and knows the words to most songs and is able to sing along to music in his gross movement class. His favorite class was swimming in CP's pool, where he could practice walking, which thrilled him very much. However, he didn't pass his last swallow study, which made swimming prohibitive due to the danger of aspiration. Andy has bloomed at cerebral palsy. The friendships that he has formed are priceless, and he is thrilled to introduce me to all of his friends. Our yard was once full of kids for my boys to play with, but they all disappeared after Andy's accident. Now his life is full again. The socialization he has gotten at CP is invaluable. If cerebral palsy were not funded by Medicaid, he would probably have to move home. At 78, I would become his full-time caretaker, physical therapist, occupational therapist, art therapist, speech therapist, and social provider. These are the activities he gets every day at CP. Andy's story is a miracle made possible by great physicians who were able to work their magic with the help of cerebral palsy and Medicaid. Without those miracle workers, Andy's story would have been much shorter.
Thank you. Jeannie, thank you again for hosting us here. And you heard some powerful stories. I think you hear powerful stories probably every single day.
Mm-hmm.
But tell us a little bit more about Curative Connections. And some have already touched on it, but Medicaid not only helps pay for health care and for health-related services, but also employs people in jobs.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Well, and first, Senator, I want to thank you for being here and really thank you for being an advocate for all of us. And it's complicated. I commend all of you for sharing your stories because that is not easy to do. But voices are heard and more voices need to be heard. So of the 7 stories that we have here, we could talk about another 400 people as members who attend and utilize our services, whether it be for aging, dementia, helping people with special abilities, transportation. So family care, IRIS, and CLTS is very important for all of us. So thank you for sharing your stories. Continue to do that and encourage others to do the same. On the other side, when we talk about workforce issues, and Megan, you kind of touched on this a little bit as far as the importance of direct care workers helping provide care. And a lot of you have already touched on that as far as the extra services that you provide, whether it be so you can go to work, so you can have that respite time, so you can go grocery shopping, all the basic things in life that make it just a little bit more challenging because you have a little more responsibilities at home. So, and we talk about that, so we employ, of the 38 direct care workers that we employ, and again, when we advocate for more money for family care, what we're looking at is to provide competitive wages for those folks who are helping as caregivers to help you as a caregiver. And when we take a look at that average pay being a little over $16 per hour, we advocate for all of our folks to say, we need to provide competitive wages. It's a workforce issue, so for a lot of people that might have to make the decision where I can't work, I need to stay home and take care of my loved one. So then you're no longer working, so it's a workforce issue. Mm-hmm. So whatever we can do to also include that story and the importance of the wonderful work that these folks do to help you, to help your children, to help your, whatever that is at their stage in the life, to give them the social integration that we talk about, the importance of what that looks like, and to just live a better quality of life. So thank you for everything that you do, and we are hoping that everything that we can do, even with our fellow nonprofits, we cover a lot of bases, and by working together, we never have enough resources, right? So what we can do to work together to help everybody, and that might be a collaborative service where you're utilizing services at multiple agencies to do that, that's very important. And family care and IRIS rely heavily upon that funding. So thank you for being an advocate and hearing all of our stories, and we will continue to share that as much and as often as we can.
Yeah, I can't stress what you were just saying enough, that you know, when you hear about this debate and the potential for cuts, it causes a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of worry. But know that we have power too. And you've just exercised some of that by coming and speaking. And we've been successful in fighting back before. So our collective voices is going to be what helps us fight back again. And I very much appreciate all of your participation. I think we want to get a group photo, if that's okay with everybody. And Aisling, where would you like us to?
Great. I think if everyone can just kind of move from the flanks and gather by the head of the table,
Is that-
that'd be terrific. And then this stuff not in everyone's way.
We can slide these tables out of the way too, if that would be.
She matters.